You look beautiful. This is a great day, and it is my privilege to welcome you to the 113th annual commencement of the Iliff School of Theology. First things first, let me congratulate each of you who have completed your degree and will be in a few moments walking across the platform. Now you're in it. This is good. We celebrate this wonderful time with you. And I also congratulate the faculty and the staff and the Board of Trustees of this Iliff community. This day represents a collective work and is one that we all look forward to celebrating. Our institutional aspirations are summed up on this day. It is what every person related to this school works toward. And to share it with you is a privilege. Our graduates are Iliff's most significant gift to the world. I want to say thank you to the people of St. Andrew, once again providing us with outstanding hospitality so that we can have this celebration today. So let us say thank you to the people of St. Andrew. I also bring a special welcome to the family and friends who have traveled to this commencement and who have been traveling along with your loved one through this entire academic journey. We know what that feels like. Some of us have done this too, and it has been done for us. And so we feel this day, and we are grateful for your presence today and your support throughout all of it. So we have sojourned around the sun one more time and find ourselves once again facing another new beginning. We come to this day feeling deep gratitude for our achievements and for the possibilities that are expressed in what we imagined and envisioned for the work yet to be done. May this commencement be both a time of celebrating accomplishment and a healthy restlessness to get to the work of our vocations. May we be fully alive to the meaning of this day. Claim every minute of it. Blessings to each of you, and welcome.
Please join us in the responsive prayer. O source of every good and perfect gift, who has gathered us from many traditions and places, we remember all who willingly or unwillingly, knowingly or unknowingly, have helped us make the journey to this time of celebration.
Lover of all, who knows and remembers every single one, we remember all the ancestors and their descendants, whose land we now inhabit. We remember those who were dehumanized by forced labor to establish this state and nation. We join your eternal recognition of their humanity and gifts beyond our knowing.
We remember those who prepared the way with us in mind, founders with a vision, faithful teachers and graduates of the past who left us a tradition of scholarship and ministry.
We remember trustees, churches, and donors who shouldered the burden of supporting and maintaining our school.
We remember pastors and chaplains, congregations, and individuals who shared their wisdom and gave us encouragement.
We remember classmates and teachers who challenged us and widened our vision of what life means and what faith requires.
We remember administrators and support staff whose steady effort made it possible for us to prepare for our future work.
And we remember with special affection friends and family, partners and children who bore with us through times of struggle, who helped us persist in reaching for our dream and claiming what we are called to be.
And live with an honest critique of Christian history. What a gift it is to all of us to come into this world and time of one's life and to begin in that place. It is to empower acts of justice and foster informed acts for good. Dr. Tinker's work has brought us a transformed view of Christianity to generations of Iliff students and to whole denominations, particularly the United Methodist Church, as he engaged the whole denomination in its act of repentance for its treatment of Native peoples at its 2012 General Conference in Tampa, Florida. Dr. Tink, has served the Iliff community for 32 years as professor of American Indian cultures and religious traditions. And most recently, he has held the Clifford Baldridge Chair. Tink is an American Indian enrolled in the Osage Nation. He holds a BA degree from New Mexico Highlands University, an MDiv from Pacific Lutheran Theological Seminary, and a PhD from the Graduate Theological Union in Berkeley. Dr. Tinker's own formation as a scholar is a model of seeking congruency with one's personal identity and is expressing it in teaching and research. And Tink, how you have lived in that tension among us, I always believe has been one of your greatest gifts to Iliff. Tink loves his students, refers to them often, and respects their interest in being challenged. They love him because of the respect he holds for them and for his willingness to learn from them. And he says he learns from them always. So from the concluding words of Tink's book, American Indian Liberation, A Theology of Sovereignty, hear his words. And if especially for this day, And if we imagine together justice and peace, the material reality can begin to emerge in the generations that come. Dream then. Dream a new dream. Imagine a new world and struggle to give it birth. As for giving it birth, this year, through the generosity of the Iliff community, we have established the Tinker Program Endowment, which will ensure that Dr. Tinker's educational legacy carries forward in perpetuity. That means forever. In addition, and it's a promise of the institution, in addition, I share this resolution from the Board of Trustees. Tink, you don't know about this, but you're about to learn something. Hear these wonderful words. By nomination of the Faculty Personnel Committee and recommended by the Dean and approved by the President, be it resolved that Dr. George Tinker, who meets the credentials of the Emeritus Faculty status articulated in the Faculty Handbook, be granted the title of the Clifford Baldridge Emeritus Professor of American Indian Cultures and Religious Traditions. Tink, we look forward to with anticipation to hearing you speak in a few moments. But given this recognition, I invite you to now stand so that we may recognize you for it.
If I can help somebody as I travel alone, if I can help somebody with a word or a song, if I can help somebody from doing wrong, then my living shall not be in vain. If I can show somebody to the Lamb that was slain, if I can tell somebody that He rose again, that He can free the guilty and wash the stain, then my living shall not be in vain. Oh, my living shall not be in vain. Yes, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I travel along, then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall not be in vain. Yes, my living shall not be in vain. If I can help somebody as I travel alone, then my living shall not be in vain. No, my living shall never ever be in vain.
Goodness, how does one follow that? Professor Tinker has chosen 3 passages to be read today. The first is from Anne McClintock's book, Imperial Leather. McClintock offers a useful commentary with regard to European Christian, in this sense British, colonialism. She writes, "Women and men did not experience imperialism in the same way. European imperialism was, from the outset, a violent encounter with pre-existing hierarchies of power that took shape not as the unfolding of its own inner destiny, but as an untidy, opportunistic interference with other regimes of power. Within this long and conflictual engagement, the gender dynamics of colonized cultures were contorted in such ways as to alter the irregular shapes that imperialism took in various parts of the world." McClintock goes on, "I do not regard imperialism as an inherently British power that impelled itself outward from a European center to subjugate the peripheral territories of the other. As I see it, imperial power emerged from a constellation of processes, taking haphazard shape from myriad encounters with alternative forms of authority, knowledge, and power. Imperialism was a situation under constant contest, producing historical effects that were neither predetermined, uncontested, nor ineradicable, in the context of extreme imbalances of power." The second passage Professor Tinker has chosen is from Barbara Mann, who in her book Iroquoian Women speaks of the extraordinary high political, economic, social, and religious status of Iroquoian women. She says, "The point of the twins' tale, that is the Iroquois creation story, is obviously the sacred rule of cosmic equilibrium, a steady principle guiding most of the social inventions of Iroquoian peoples. Among other things, equilibrium is the animating purpose behind gendering, or the interaction between male and female energies that dictated the separation of social functions by gender. Like the twins, the sections functioned as cooperative halves. At once independent, yet interdependent, they worked to create the perfect whole of society. In all the spheres, the social and the religious, the political and the economic, women did women's half and men did men's half, but it was only when the equal halves combined that community cohered into the functional whole of a healthy society. Thus, the twins of the direction of the sky were seen to order the natural world. If socially replicating their cosmic principle of equilibrium was a sacred act, it was only fit such a widespread analogy as the direction of the sky, so obviously ordained by the cosmos, should guide the expression of twinship, the genders. This conceptual framework provided the setting and the sense of gendering. Male and female were not about sex. Instead, male and female were but one of a series of bonded pairs evident everywhere in the culture. Gendering was therefore both perceived and engineered, its purpose being to honor sky wisdom in one of its principal messages to Turtle Island, the perfect balance of the sky. And finally, a passage from the Dakota scholar Vine Deloria Jr., who in the book Spirit and Reason argues, "The living universe requires mutual respect among its members, the willingness of entities to allow others to fulfill themselves, and the refusal of any entity to intrude thoughtlessly on another must be the operative principle of the universe. This creative participation is always personal and has an aspect of novelty. The object of ceremonial is to make whole again what has now become dissociated and chaotic. In order to accomplish this goal, all possible elements of the universe must be brought within a harmony. Sacrifices must be made to heal the injuries of each party, and a new beginning must be made."
A 32-year sigh. It's now been almost 33 years. Wakanda Monchida, Wakanda Utsere, Tachi Topo, Wakanda Ki, Blinde we Achno, we Chico, Eque, we Wachi, we Chico, the Dongio. President Wolf, Chairperson Sanborn, and our deeply appreciated trustees, Dean Lee, and esteemed former faculty, colleagues, and most of all, our highly accomplished and by now deservedly exhausted graduates. By now in my career, for most people who've hung around me at all, it should be clear that Indian people are about balance, equilibrium, harmony. That's the goal. I've written about and lectured frequently the distinction between cosmic balance, our ideal, and the modern Euro-Christian notion of personal salvation and the radical individualism that seeps out of the Renaissance. So I want to sing a song that captures a little bit of that. Just a single, what we call in the Indian world, that we're now in the Indian part of this ceremony, right? What Indian people call a push-up. We typically would sing 4 of these, but I want to sing just one. Wea-hia-ya, 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 wea-wea-wea, wea-hia-ya, wea-hia-ya, wea-wea-wea. Ya, wea, ya, wea, wea, wea. Tonkashilaya, hoye wayekte, namachwelo Makasitomnia, hoye wayekte, namachwelo Takuyelo, waniktelo, epilo, hai. Like my opening salutation, it calls upon the cosmic energy from the above, the cosmic energy from below, and then expresses the solidarity of all life on this world and calls upon the ancestors, our relatives, to be with us here. Then in order to help me with my comments, I've got to sing one other song. This is a song that I sing in an academic context, especially to Indian graduates and Indian academics who, after all, are doing kind of a backwards thing, trying to break into the disequilibrium by becoming a part of the disequilibrium. Well, this song is to a backwards guy who hangs around me from time to time. His name is Shomikati Sabe. He's a black coyote. And coyotes are typically people who do things backwards. Well, watch it the dog, yeah, watch it the dog, we watch it with Chico. Show me Kathy Sabe, we watch it. We watch the dong yo hey. We watch the dong yo. We watch it with Chico. Show me Kathy Sabe, we watch it, the dongyo, aye. We watch it, the dongyo, we watch it, the dongyo, we watch it with Chico. Show me Kathy Sabe, we watch it, the dongyo, aye. We watch it, the dongyo, we watch it with Chico. Show me Kathy Sabe, we watch it, the dongyo, hai. Kakuna, wita wa donde kire tani. What an honor to be asked to perform one last function for my school, Iliff School of Theology, and to be with you at your graduation. Yeah, it was 33 years ago this coming August 1st that I pulled into Denver with my family, two little boys who are now edging up towards their 40s, and began to make Iliff my home. Not my home, because when people ask me where I'm from, it's always Oklahoma. Or that part of Oklahoma surrounded by the state of Oklahoma, called the sovereign nation of the Wajaji, Toronto, the Wajaji people. Iliff, I'd never heard of until I came here to interview. That's not true. I was a member of the SBL, and I do remember some guy named Kent Richards, who was high up in the SBL, who had the word Iliff after his name in SBL literature. Other than that, I didn't have a clue whether it was Methodist or Catholic, and I wasn't sure I wanted to come here when I interviewed. But there was one person here that sold me on Iliff, and that was our dearly beloved and now departed Vincent Harding. I was the fulfillment of a promise to Vincent that he would not be the only person of color on the faculty, and Tink Tinker was the lightest skinned person of color they could find. And it took them 7 years to figure out they'd made a bad choice, and by then they'd tenured me. But I've loved Iliff for the freedom Iliff has given me to be who I am and to teach what I need to teach. To break the rules. To move the boundaries around. And part of that, the first part of that, is I discovered right away that Iliff was special because Iliff had a very special student body. Strong students. Students not afraid to explore whatever problem I was to put before them. Students who were not afraid of hard work. I was told at one point early in my career that I assigned too much reading to students. This is faculty colleagues who said that, and I turned to the faculty and I said, I don't know about your students, but my students read what I ask them to read. You all worked hard. I know y'all didn't read everything. I spent a semester at Union Theological Seminary in New York City, part of the Columbia University complex, one of the top-ranked schools in the country. And I really enjoyed being there. enjoyed those students. Faculty colleagues, I would have to spend more time with them to say, other than a couple of faculty of color, that I actually felt at home with that faculty. But the students were great. But by the time the semester was over and I came back to Iliff, I said to myself, you know what? Our students don't give anything away to union students. Our students are equally as good. Thank you for that. I leave Iliff with deep, deep memories and appreciation of students in general, and a lot of you in particular. Marcia and Karen are smiling at me from the front row. Secondly, though, Iliff was a great place to be because I was surrounded by some really good faculty colleagues. People who were great scholars in their own right and challenged me in ways that prompted me to become a better scholar myself. So I leave with strong memories of those relationships. And I'll talk in a little bit about my own theology of no hope, my own anti-Moltmann perspective, which has developed here alongside of Miguel de la Torre. That first quarter, and I have to say this, we've got to be honest with one another, right? We can't just hit the high notes and say, congratulations, go on with your work. That first quarter, one of my colleagues pulled me aside, Professor Clarence Snelling, and he told me something that he told me no other faculty member would dare to tell me. He said, but Tink, you need to know this. And he went on to tell me the story about the book, as much as he knew of it. The infamous book which my school, Iliff School of Theology, a Christian school, a Methodist school, had found appropriate to put on display as a well-earned trophy in a book glass case outside the library for 80 years, from 1893 until 1974, which was bound in a cover made out of the skin of a murdered Indian victim whose skin had been flayed and then tanned, and then passed down through several generations of Methodists, including Methodist ministers in West Virginia, one of whom, R.M. Barnes, thought the book to be enough of a treasure that he gave it as a gift to the brand new Iliff School of Theology. I was all of a sudden in a world of hurt. Let me step back a minute and tell you that 2 or 3 years before, I had a close student colleague, doctoral student, a Holy Names nun, who was teaching at a Holy Names College in the Bay Area, who invited me into her class to give a lecture. And as we're walking down the hall, we walk past the anthropology department and the requisite glass case of artifacts outside the anthro department, when suddenly Sister said to me, "Oh, look, Tink, there's one of your ancestors." And sure enough, as in many anthro cases back then, there was an American Indian skull on exhibit. The problem is she had no idea what she was talking about or doing to me emotionally. another 100 yards and we got to her classroom, and she introduced me, and I was still speechless. My insides were just in a turmoil. And I scrapped my talk, and I talked instead about that relative in the glass case. And she was so deeply perturbed with the way I told that story, and deeply apologetic for what she had done to me right before I needed to speak, that she approached the head of the anthropology department. It was, after all, a one-person department. I told you it was a Catholic college, right? The head of the anthro department was an 80-year-old nun who became equally perturbed at what her school had done to this Indian ancestor. And she invited me and some American Indian Movement people from the Bay Area to come in and rescue that skull and take it to a final burial place with the Ohlone peoples of that part of the Bay Area. So you see, what happened with that book wasn't new to me. I'd already been involved in that sort of horror. And it took me a long time to recover from the knowledge that at least I took respite in this. At least Iliff had gotten rid of the cover. They had turned it over to the American Indian Movement in 1974, and those people had taken it in a respectful, sacred way up north to a Yeshka, a medicine man up at Rosebud, who had finally interred the cover of that book. But then I began to look at the Iliff archives about it because, as Clarence Snelling had told me, nobody would talk about it. Even the Iliff historian told me, "Nope, I don't know anything about that." Yeah, right. Well, I discovered why they wouldn't talk. The president at Iliff had sworn them all to secrecy in 1974. He even swore the American Indian Movement to secrecy. So after 25 years, I was ready to write the essay to expose what had happened. And I decided, I'm American Indian Movement, so I can't write this essay, but I'm Iliff, so I can write this essay. So it was the Iliff part of me, not the AIM part of me, that wrote the essay. Y'all, a lot of you know it, red skin, tanned hide. It was blind reviewed. And the editors they sent it off to, all three of them came back with recommendations. You need to soften your language. How many different ways can you say this was ghastly? And I wrote back to the editor of the journal, and I said, I don't know. Ask them if I missed any. I'd like to include them. Because for white people, Euro-Christian people, this isn't quite as abhorrent as it is for Indians. It's just an oops moment. Sorry, let's move beyond that. Here's the skin. We're going back to work. And you all need to know, this is a serious disruption in the harmony and balance of the cosmos for every Indian person. And we're in a new era now where suddenly we have a top administrator, the president of the institution, who is firmly committed now to transparency, to owning that past. Because you don't move beyond it by simply going into hibernation and denial. You don't move beyond it by simply romanticizing the present. You have to go back and recapture that past and learn to live with it. So in the classroom the last decade or more, I've been talking about moving beyond the romance of American history, beyond the romance of Christianity in the modern world, for those of you here who had the opportunity to take that course with me and Jean Miller-Schmidt, and after Jean retired, a number of other Iliff doctoral students who worked with me. Yeah, Christianity goes hand in hand from 1492 on with European colonialism, so I call it Euro-Christian colonialism. And until we understand that underside of Christianity, we're working kind of in a dark room with no windows in embracing the romance. Jamaican scholar, University of Columbia anthropologist David Scott wrote the book Conscripts of Modernity, in which he makes the case that history needs to be told not through the lens of romance, but through the lens of tragedy. And maybe we need to look at church through that lens of tragedy instead of romance. Yeah, for Indians, the disequilibrium starts already in 1492, and we've been living in disequilibrium for 500 plus years. But it's more than that. Y'all have been living it too, and it's so regularized and normalized, that we think that's the way life is. So we even normalize it in Christian theology by talking inane things about human nature, as if that somehow were obviously true. We no longer even have to argue the case for human nature, because we've lived with that lens, that mythic scheme that somehow, goes back to that Reformation embracing of a doctrine of original sin, I suspect. And no matter how much we say we no longer believe in original sin, human nature is still a given that we have come to normalize as everything around us. I suspect that's why we Americans live with this increasing obscenity that we call the Second Amendment, and think that it's impossible to live, especially if you're white and male, without a gun in your possession. How bizarre is that? The only nation in the developed world where that's an actuality. And people are willing to fight in order to keep that amendment in place, to keep our freedoms, as if freedom can only be envisioned at the end of a barrel of a Colt 45. See, it goes back to the beginnings of Colorado, back to the wild, wild West, which now is extended as far east as the southern tip of Florida and the northeastern part of Maine. Now, that's the disequilibrium that we live in, that somehow nobody is safe without an AR-15 in their home. Right. Yep, the disequilibrium has been part of the Indian world long enough that we've gotten used to being poor, So long that an Indian woman, an elder woman in Northern California told me 35 years ago, the day my Indian people stop being poor is the day they stop being Indian. And today it's such that the last time I looked, 6 of the 10 poorest counties in the United States were Indian reservations. Some of you have been with me to Shannon County, which is now Pine Ridge County, in the Pine Ridge Indian Reservation, which held the top spot for a long time and lost it to Crow Creek Reservation. Rosebud's not far behind, and I could name more than that. Where unemployment is not double white unemployment, 8 or 9 or 10%, or even 15%, but it runs 75 to 80 to 90, up to 92%. That's what 500 years of colonialism has done. You can tell people, move to the city, but that's not where the land is. In our hearts is where the land is. My wife tells me when we cross the Arkansas River, after we drive through Ponca City in Oklahoma, my accent changes. And that's not conscious on my part, but she swears it's true every year as we go back. Well, disequilibrium has been naturalized both by Indians today and by our white relatives. Indians naturalize it by joking about it. A guy who told me a story about an Indian who went to heaven. We don't even have a word for heaven in our language, right? Or hell for that matter. But he's lined up at the reception desk where some guy named Pete or something was talking to a Methodist minister who was ahead of him, and there's a Catholic priest in between them who was second in line. And the Pete guy says to the Methodist minister, we have to give a little test here before we can let you in. You have to spell God. And the Methodist minister said, oh, that's easy enough, G-O-D. And the Pete guy says, yeah, welcome to heaven. Come here, let me walk you through the gates. And he stamped his hands so they'd be able to recognize him as belonging. Same thing with the Catholic priest. And the priest said, oh, I can do that, G-O-D. And the Indian guy is really feeling relief because he's a little concerned. He had only made it through the 5th grade and wasn't sure he could spell much more than a 3-letter word. And it was his turn, so he thrust his chest out and he smiled. And the Pete guy says, well, welcome. We're going to give you a little test here. The guy said, I'm ready. Go for it. And spell Albuquerque. But then it gets naturalized throughout the 20th century in humorous ways that recover this business of disequilibrium being an everyday experience that you can count on. There's an Indian humorist, Will Rogers, who died in 1935, so we're talking about early 20th century, whose famous dictum put it this way: things ain't the way they was, and they probably never were. And then you get later in the 20th century, and novelist Kurt Vonnegut, who is reputed to have given this graduation address. After a long 10, 15-minute introduction of the famous speaker, Vonnegut is said to have gotten up and said, "Things are going to get a hell of a lot worse, and they're not getting any better," and sat down. For us, it's encoded in the humor of a 19th century novelist, Herman Melville, who in his 1857 book, The Confidence Man, has 2 chapters devoted to something he called the metaphysics of Indian hating. And he's talking about the absurdity in 1857 of continuing to hate Indians, but it's become a joke because there aren't any Indians left in that part of the world to hate in the Northwest, in Ohio, in the old Northwest Territory, in Ohio, in Cincinnati, and along the Mississippi River. By then, Indians had been pushed back into the woods or across the Mississippi as far west as Oklahoma. Yet the metaphysics of Indian hating is still here. And you graduates have got to figure out a way how to deal with this. It's being taught. White supremacy is being taught in the 4th grade here in Cherry Creek School District in an elementary school called Willow Creek. And the bizarre thing is, the faculty there, 4th grade faculty and the principal, had a hard time understanding our critique that it was white supremacist literature. They couldn't see it. It's just a story about a 14-year-old white boy who gets abducted by Pawnees who are busy stringing their scalps around their teepees. Right, it's a modern Indian captivity story told through the eyes of a white author comfortably ensconced up in Minneapolis, St. Paul, and his books are selling like hotcakes. The last time I looked on Amazon, this particular book had 4.5 stars from some 85 readers on Amazon. Wow, none of them could see that the book might be a problem for Indian kids or even Indian people generally. The book ends with a white mountain man who kills an Indian advocate who had abducted this young boy and then proceeds to take his scalp. And the young white boy walks away, climbs on his horse, and rides off. And he says in the closing words of the book, he was better than that. He wasn't going to be like the Indians. See, the mountain man had become like the Indians. He had gone native. And that's terrible, that's dirty, that's immoral. And he rode off into the sunset, headed to rejoin his family in Oregon in their new homestead on newly stolen Indian land. It's funny, it's got a humorous side, because by the time we were done with the school and they pulled the book, they'd already ordered new copies for next year because they'd worn out the old ones, and they had to throw them all out, including the new ones. The metaphysics of Indian hating. My daughter, some of you know, is 9 years old. She just finished 3rd grade. She's wonderful. She's alive. She's funny. She's warm. Great personality. And here we are in late April, and we discover that my daughter is also being asked to read white supremacist literature in the 3rd grade. She came home announcing to us, we're reading Peter Pan. J.M. Barr, 1904. Written in the heart of the empire, at the height of the British Empire, and reflecting all those colonialist imperial values. And again, people I deeply respect and love could not get it that this was not appropriate literature for kids to be reading. It's okay for kids to be reading about the Indians. There are movies. Disney loves this book and makes it movies of it time and time again. The Indians in the book are called Pickaninny, the Pickaninny tribe. And they're found, they're Indians because they're creeping through the woods. It's like stuff I'm reading in the late 18th century. They're Indians because they're sneaking onto a white farm. Never mind that they used to live there and they're just checking out their home property. But they're sneaking because they're Indians. Code words that get used. Pan reaches a crescendo for Indians when Peter Pan saves the Indians from the pirates, and all the Indians bow down to worship this white boy. That's a problem. That's a problem. They finally, in fact, the school district did not pull the book. The school. The school only pulled the book when they got orders from the assistant superintendent to pull it, and the associate superintendent pulled it from all the schools in DPS. The principal had insisted to me, we have a lot of kids of color here. We want them to learn the classics. Learning the classics is important so that they can be equals with white people in the business world when they get out of school. The classics, unfortunately, tend to be racist. How are we going to bring equilibrium back into the world if we start teaching disequilibrium as early as the 3rd and 4th grade? See, that's the tragedy that Indian people live with day after day after day. So I want to call you to be resistors of disequilibrium. Even when disequilibrium seems to be the most natural thing in the world, everyone's doing it. Your neighbors are doing it. Your parents are doing it. Your kids are doing it. The people around you in school are doing it. Learn to identify it and resist it. Because only when we disrupt equilibrium can we begin to plot a course to make right what has been made so dreadfully wrong. As a social world, I'm calling for a new social imaginary, as it were, something that Charles Taylor never dreamed or couldn't. To take the words from Tom Troger's I Love Him. We need a new social imaginary. Dream a new dream. Imagine a different way of being in harmony and balance. That means we have to begin to think in terms of Wakonda Monshita, Wakonda Utsira, Tatsi Topo Wakondaki. The all around us, being in balance with the universe, as Vine Deloria put it. So I invite you, now that you've graduated, almost in a few minutes, to keep on working for justice and peace, for equilibrium in the world. You're graduated and I'm retired, but the work goes on. For you, it just begins. And I can tell you, I've been so busy that the only sense I have that I'm actually retired is that I don't get a paycheck anymore. But at least now, Tom, I can replace that word retired in my email signature. Thank you for finding a nice way to tell me I am, as the Germans say, emeritiert. And I'll leave you with one bit of advice. As you struggle against disequilibrium, never give in to guilt. I've said that in my classes since the beginning. White guilt doesn't help people of color, doesn't help Indians. Don't give in to guilt. Just fight the fight. And above all else, this comes from an elderly medicine man years ago, and an Eagle Clan elder from the Southern Ute Nation, a woman. Always enjoy life. Because if you're not enjoying life, you can't help anyone. So as you fight the good fight, enjoy yourself. Kakuna, wida wadonde kirethani, congratulations.
Soul force, life source of the hopeless, the oppressed. You who taught us that our silences do not protect us. You within us who taught us a response including and beyond Me Too. You who rear your head, lash out, stand up, speak up, analyze, strategize, and perform in the face of children and parents torn from one another's embrace. You, the substance of necessity and the evidence of its extraordinary manifestation. We acknowledge your presence when we fight for what is right, even when it seems we lose. When we festival, party, barbecue, anyhow. We thank you for your presence in our everyday activities, studies, prayers, work. You break the redundant and mundane with surprise and beauty. We confess we have not been genuine friends to one another. Many of us have invaded one another physically and spiritually. We have not been genuine friends to one another. Many of us have failed to hear and heed the calls to cease complicity and rectify our wrongs. We have not been genuine friends to one another. Instead, many of us have prescribed for one another. We have not been genuine friends to one another. Many of us have trusted in power over ways of being instead of cultivating the shared authority of power with one another. In these and other ways, personally and collectively, we have let one another down. May grace lead us to the wells of justice from which forgiveness quenches its thirst in joy. May we commence with urgency and haste to be genuine friends, supporting one another in times of need and crisis. May we commence with urgency and haste to fight spiritual, social, and political battles, though with the imagination of our ancestors and children, never retreating to smoky clouds of transcendent hope. Cosmic energy from all directions, we invoke you today when our backs are against the wall, when we are in solidarity with those whose backs are against the wall. Stir in us wisdom to escape paths of liberation. Stir in us courage to expose oppression wherever it may be. Stir in us ways of admonishing one another that motivate us all to do better and best and better. Stir in us ways to confront injustice without reproducing it. Rebalance us as community rises up. Allow it to rise up through us. In our vocations, in our families, among our friends and our people, with a new unction of faith, partnership, justice, unity, and diversity. And all we who gathered and could said, Amen and Ashe, Amen and Ashe.
Please stand. I need you, you need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me, disagree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is God's will every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I need you. You need me. We're all a part of God's body. Stand with me. Disagree with me. We're all a part of God's body. It is God's will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive. You are important to me. I need you to survive. I pray for you. You pray for me. I love you. I need you to survive. I won't hurt you with the words from my mouth. I love you. I need you to survive. It is God's will that every need be supplied. You are important to me. I need you to survive.
Our thanks to Karen Ware Joseph for leading us in this hymn together. Thank you, Karen.
Established in 1892 with the laying of the cornerstone on June 8th, The Iliff School of Theology is a freestanding, United Methodist-related theological school legally authorized to grant master's and doctoral degrees under the authority of the Board of Trustees. As a board, we celebrate scholarly achievement, service to the church and society, and the successful completion of Iliff's academic programs. Upon the recommendation of the faculty, the Board of Trustees has voted to award the degrees Master of Arts, Master of Arts in Pastoral and Spiritual Care, Master of Arts in Social Justice and Ethics, Master of Theological Studies, Master of Divinity, and Doctor of Philosophy in Religious and Theological Studies, respectively, upon the persons here listed.
I'll be honest with you, this is my favorite part every year. And it's because of what it unleashes in the world. You. So on recommendation of the faculty and by the vote of the Board of Trustees of the Iliff School of Theology, hereby confer the degrees as listed in the program with all the rights, powers, and privileges pertaining thereto. In token whereof, you will be given the appropriate hood and diploma.
I have the privilege of presenting the candidate for the degree Master of Arts, Keely Autumn Hinshaw McCabe, with a distinction in absentia. It is also my privilege to present the candidates for the degree Master of Arts in Pastoral and Spiritual Care, Marsha Lynn Meyer, Barry Daniel Wilson in absentia, I have the privilege of presenting the candidates for the degree Master of Arts in Social Justice and Ethics. Quinton Raymond Bob, Emily Sepulveda Wieland, Tessa Munson Wood, I have the privilege of presenting the candidates for the degree Master of Theological Studies. Aaron Edwards Brown in absentia. Anna Elizabeth Birch in absentia. Maria de Lourdes Pastrana Calderon. Dewitt Daggett with distinction. David Wayne Dewitt with distinction. Karin A. Dremel. Stephanie Michelle Ghetto. Emilia Helen Glaze in absentia. Sarah Eleanor Goodwin in absentia. Joshua Daniel Gutierrez. Lindsay Marie Hoddle in absentia. Alison Ostrowski with a distinction in absentia. Andrew Michael Sprain. I have the privilege of presenting the candidates for the degree Master of Divinity. John Paul Bowden. Spencer Taylor Black in absentia. Christopher Patrick Breen in absentia. Collar J. Kane. Tony Chance with a distinction in absentia. Christine Dance. Jamie Lee Dolores Damsky with a distinction. Ryan Duncan. Brandon Thomas Edmund with a distinction. Richard Arvid Giangero. Annie Norton Groves with a distinction. Eda Maria Hetnut. Janice Lynn Head. Rhonda Hensley with distinction in absentia. Kurt Hodges. Asa Andrew Holly. Jane Louise Holtzclaw. Kenneth Edward Gerald. Susan Alexandra Jarvis Telepati. Loretta Ann Lundquist with a distinction. Jason Michael Miller. Amy Hodges Morehouse with a distinction in absentia. Wendy Lynn Musgrave. Mina Maria Now. Jamie Lynn Nieves. Kelly Warren Peavy in absentia. David Matthew Parody. David Austin Piper with a distinction. Bridget Suzette Priest in absentia. Dixie Lisbeth Rodriguez in absentia. Carol Ann Scheer with a distinction. Penelope Cruz C. with a distinction. Cheryl Suzanne Swing. Melanie Lorraine Tubbs in absentia. Debria Louis Upton. Carla Ann Vogel. Candace Charmaine Woods. Alexandra Wright with a distinction. I have the privilege of presenting the candidates for the degree Doctor of Philosophy. After each candidate's name is mentioned, I will also read the title of their dissertation, so please hold your applause until I finish reading their dissertation title. John Michael Bechtold in absentia. Dissertation, Tragic Creation, Hope for the Future. Moltmann's creative misreading of Hegel's philosophy. Donald Featherstone in absentia. Dissertation, Living Through Terror and Terror Through Living, the Biopolitical Dimensions of Religion, Security, and Terrorism. Michael Paul Hemingway in absentia. Dissertation title is Bible as Interface. Randolph Norton Herbst in absentia. Dissertation, A History of Non-Denominational Churches in Denver and Beyond, 1945 through 2000. Thad Horrell in absentia. Dissertation, The Negotiation of Racial, Ethnic, and Religious Identifications in American Heathenry. Carrie Michelle Myers. Dissertation, How to Make It Here, a qualitative study on generational narratives of survival and success among Latino and white evangelical communities along the U.S.-Mexico border. Catherine R. Osborne. Dissertation, In a Material World, Analyzing Religious Peace Building in Lebanon and Bosnia-Herzegovina. Benjamin Peters in absentia. Dissertation, Narrativizing Theory, the Role of Ambiguity in Religious Aesthetics. Joshua Ray Ramos in absentia. Dissertation, A Critical Interpretation of Olivier Roy on Globalization, the Cosmopolitan and Emerging Post-Secular Religiosities. Ben Sanders III in absentia. Dissertation, Traditioning Blackness, a theoretical analysis of Black identity in Black theological discourse. Jeffrey Satterwhite, in absentia. Dissertation, Honor, Shame, and Redemption, explicating the American evangelical right's moral worldview regarding same-sex marriage and abortion. Patrick Giza Stephan, dissertation, The Power of a Resurrection, Early Christian Resistance through the Rise of a Disciplinary Power. Arthur Leon Treadwell, dissertation, Black, Queer, and Blessed, toward a biblically based Black queer theology. Please join me in congratulating all of our graduates.
Throughout this piece, we have used and adapted a few words from a poem entitled Righteousness, written by Bishop Easterling. As her actions at the recent Baltimore-Washington Annual Conference show, these are hard words to stand by. Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain.
Vivian Green.
We hope you dance.
We hope you dance. We live in a culture where walking to the store with a hoodie, listening to loud music in your car, switching lanes without signaling, selling untaxed cigarettes, playing in the park, being a stranded motorist, holding a cell phone in your grandmother's backyard, refusing to turn over your cell phone to your teacher, attending Wednesday night Bible, or waiting in a Starbucks are all actions that can get you arrested or worse, get you killed. So Keely, Marcia, and Barry, may you fully embrace the truth that your holy word has named as evil, which includes all forms of injustice and oppression, because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance
in the rain.
We hope you dance.
The politics of respectability will not save us, and the master's tools will never dismantle the master's house. What tools then? Your voice and actions can use tools you've practiced at Iliff. Critical analysis of theological systems and practices, of comparison of different traditions, of social contexts, sacred texts, and historical developments. Carol, Penelope, Cheryl, Melanie, Debbie, Carla Fogel, Candace, and Alexandra, may you have the courage to confront the injustices you witness.
Because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance. We challenge you to have the audacity to believe and proclaim that marginalized lives matter. That those lives matter as much as yours does. As you stand on the shoulders of those who came before you, and as you prepare the way for those who will come after you, you must decide what side of history you will stand on,
Where will you draw a line in the sand and say, enough is enough? So Jason, Amy, Wendy, Mina, Jamie, Kelly, David, Austin, Bridget, and Dixel, may you be willing to open your mind and broaden your understanding of discriminatory practices and positions of which you were once ignorant. Because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance.
We challenge you to ask the question, who's not at the table and why? Why not get a larger table and more chairs? When you leave this graduation to celebrate with friends and family, will everyone there look like you? Think like you? Annie, Etta, Janice, Rhonda, Kurt, Asa, Jane, Kenneth, Susan, and Loretta, may you not stand idly by when another culture, language, or race is used as the punchline of an ill-fated joke.
Because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance. So now that your degree has been conferred, the real work begins. We charge you not to rest on your laurels, thinking that now that you have graduated from Iliff School of Theology, you have arrived, and you know all there is to know about social justice. Quentin, Emily, and Tessa, we challenge you that you walk with the understanding that there is more required of you. John Paul, Spencer, Christopher, Carla Kane, Tony, Christine, Jamie Lee, Ryan, Brandon, and Richard, may you speak out against systemic policies and practices that continue the oppressive privilege of the powerful over and against the less powerful. And may you disrupt the disequilibrium. Because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance.
As you continue your study of religions, Lee, Carrie, Patrick, and Catherine, Lourdes, Aaron, Allison, Sarah, Joshua, Lindsay, Stephanie, David, DeWitt, Anna, Andy, Karin, Mimi, we challenge you to keep asking the hard questions. Why should we care? How would you know if you were wrong? What would count as evidence? Who's missing from your reading list? Because life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance.
I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. And God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give fate the fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. You never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some hell-bent heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. And give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance.
Because why? Life isn't about waiting for the storm to pass. It's about learning to dance in the rain. We hope you dance.
The graduates have written this blessing for their own hands and invite everyone to participate as they feel moved.
Whatever you will be doing after graduation, be it parish ministry, chaplaincy, nonprofit work, community ministry, or something else, your hands will be a blessing to the world. And I invite you to stand now, graduates, as we continue this prayer.
We would like to take a moment and bless the hands that will be doing this sacred work.
Take a moment and look at your hands. Now feel each finger. Rub your hands together. Feel the heat.
Connect to your personal fire, your individual creative spark, the spark of divinity, however you define it. Let your hands be big, bright, and bold. Let them dance.
And now, as you are willing, hold your neighbor's hand and feel their divine spark. Friends, family, and Iliff family, we invite you also to please hold hands as you are comfortable as we bless their hands.
This journey is one of community and togetherness, and it is by working together that our hands will have the greatest impact. We bless your hands.
These are the hands of people that you first met as strangers, and now are something more. Friends, colleagues, fellow pilgrims on the journey of spirituality.
These are the hands that have supported you, challenged you, and even wiped away tears. In person or virtually, as you have typed the papers, turned the pages, and agonized over the meaning of a text.
Now we invite you to release each other's hands and look again at your own hands. These are the hands that are going out into the world to make a difference.
These are the hands that will cradle newborn babies, the miracle of beginnings and our hope for the world.
These are the hands that open doors of hospital rooms, churches, nonprofit agencies, homes, and hearts.
These are the hands that will build houses of sanctuary and will also tear down systems of oppression.
These are the hands that will hold protest signs and wear Black Lives Matter wristbands and maybe even handcuffs.
These are the hands that first wrote tentative applications to theology schools. These are the hands that have written master's thesis statements, footnotes, and exegesis.
These are the hands that will continue to write, typing out words that will inspire, comfort, and challenge.
Sometimes you may wish for these hands to be closed-fisted, protecting your heart from the vulnerability and bravery that ministry requires.
But instead, these hands will reach out in strength and willingness to recognize the divine spark in others.
These are the hands that just moments ago stepped up to receive a diploma, representing both privileges and responsibilities. Use both with authority, respect, and honor.
These are the hands that will grow old and that will hold hands with those who are even older, who will witness the transitions and losses that come with aging and death, reaching out to what Larry Graham called the great wherever. Hold the hands of those loved ones who are grieving and searching for comfort.
I invite you to hold these hands with reverence and awe every time you look at them. Appreciate that every time you reach out these hands and every time that they are received represents a decision to reaffirm your commitment to what is sacred, what is courageous, and what is loving. Your ministry begins today, but it begins anew every time you reach out your hands. We bless your hands.
A gun and hold your heart, can put out fires and make them start. Skin and bones and flesh and blood. With all this nerve, how did we get this numb? 'Cause they can hurt or they can heal. They can give back or they can steal. They can break the world or they can change it to hands. Hands, oh, hands. Hands. 'Cause they can love or they can take. They can fight up until they save. They can break the world or they can change it to hands. It doesn't matter who you love. All that matters is your love. 'Cause I've been watching news and seeing all this hate. Tell me, is it wrong to want a little change? Hands, hands, oh, hands, hands. 'Cause they can love or they can take. They can fight up until they save. They can break the world or they can change it to hands. If a million hands can build a wall, a million hands can break it down. If a million hands can build a wall, a million hands can break it down. If a million hands can build a wall, a million hands can break it down. If a million hands can build a wall, a million hands can break it down. Repeat after me. We are here. We are here. We are here for all of us. 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 That's why we are here. That's why we are here. We are here. We are here for all of us. We are here for all of us. That's why we are here.
guess you're supposed to keep standing. So, during your time at Iliff, we, your teachers, have implored you to listen to the prophets, to Jeremiah and to Amos, who urge us to let justice roll down like waters, to cry for righteousness at the gate, and to fight for the oppressed and the marginalized. And that's very in keeping with who we are, and that's a pressing message. But I've been thinking maybe we don't remind you enough to enjoy your life. Tink already talked about that, of course. Stole my thunder. To take pleasure in the quotidian, to reflect on your insignificance in the grand scheme of the created order. So maybe we don't talk enough about Ecclesiastes. So today I want to read from this corner of the biblical canon, from chapter 9. Go and eat your food joyfully and drink your wine happily, because God has already approved of what you do. Let your garments always be white. Don't run short of oil for your head. Enjoy life with the person you dearly love all the days of your fleeting life that God gives you under the sun. All the days of your fleeting life. Because that's your part to play in this life and in your hard work under the sun. Whatever you are capable of doing, do with all your might. Because there's no work, thought, knowledge, or wisdom in the grave, which is where you are headed. So go, eat your food joyfully, drink your wine happily, and enjoy life with the people you love, knowing that God has already approved of what you do.
I now declare the Iliff School of Theology 2018 commencement concluded.